lady who walks around without being shady, who knows her values, who's gone through trials. Her smiles are captured from mouth to mouth. It's not the size of her thighs she worries about, but the pride she thrives to keep that drive. That cinnamon twist. That cinnamon twist. That cinnamon twist. Ladies, can you feel me? That cinnamon twist. That cinnamon twist. That cinnamon twist.
Hey everybody, it is your girl Tasha, known to the world as the Tasha Carpenter, but everybody calls me your girl Tasha because when you hang with me, what? It is like you are hanging with your girl. And today, guys, you are tuning in for a topic that a lot of people think that we should not be discussing, but we have to go ahead and discuss. Just because you don't talk about it does not mean that it does not exist. So today's show is about ignorance versus racism. And in the studio today, I'm allowing my wonderful guests to introduce themselves. You should recognize both of them.
I am Trinity Carpenter. I met Latasha yesterday in a supermarket parking lot. She came up to me and she was like, hey, let's do a show. So I was like, okay, cool.
and you guys have seen me a few times. Derrick Jones, a.k.a. Mr. Card Logic. And I'm just here to chime in on the topic. So let's go.
Let's go.
All right, everybody. For those of you who don't know, this is my Mini Me Trinity. Okay, this is my daughter that actually has prompted the reason why we decided to wait for her to get home, and so that we could talk about her experience during her first semester of college in the Deep South. Okay, and coming face to face to some things that she wasn't used to here in the DMV. You know, at least not as openly expressed in the DMV with people. So I guess the first thing that I want to do is we are talking about ignorance versus racism. So I think that we need to go to the Webster Dictionary and read the definition of both of them for those of you coming in. First of all, make sure you share and invite. And that's for everybody. I don't care who it is. Whether you got a black friend, a white friend, a Chinese friend, a Hispanic friend, share and invite this broadcast. And I'm looking forward to you guys actually commenting in the comments and also calling in here so we can have a true discussion about this, okay? So, the definition, according to Webster, when it comes to ignorance, is lacking knowledge or awareness in general, uneducated or unsophisticated. He was told constantly that he was ignorant and stupid. Racisms, that's a noun, a prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior.
Okay.
Now, that's the Webster Dictionary definition of it. Each of us as individuals may have different definitions. So, Trinity, I'm going to start with you to let you explain what you feel both of those words mean to you.
Okay. Well, ignorance is literally, you were never exposed to this. It wasn't brought upon you and you've never seen this. And it comes in the form of I feel like just not being taught. But at the same time, some people use ignorance as an excuse because it's things you know because you've seen it across the media. It's like an unwritten rule. Sometimes people use ignorance as an excuse to test the waters, and that's when it becomes racism. That's when it becomes, oh, well, I didn't know. And a lot of people say they don't know. They don't know. I felt a lot of times that a lot of people don't know that they're racist, but I've come to terms to realize that it's not that they don't know, it's just that they don't want to accept it. It's just like with alcohol abuse. People, the first step to fixing a problem is accepting that you have the problem, and that's why the problem continuously doesn't get fixed, because people don't want to put that title on themselves, and they don't want to own up to it.
And to sum that all up, people use ignorance sometimes. It's not that they are ignorant, but they use ignorance as a way to refuse responsibility
Yes.
for the things that they're saying to people and hurting people.
Yep. Yeah. And for me, it's really like I have a couple of coworkers that are Caucasian, and we have discussions almost weekly about race because we have kind of made a pact that we would have open discussion without taking offense, because it's kind of like a teaching moment on both sides. And racism overall, I think a lot of times people get it confused. A lot of times, like even in the definition, it says when you believe your race is superior to the other race. And so a lot of times you'll hear people call African Americans or black people of African descent, they'll say, you're racist too. If you're calling me a racist, you're a racist. But there's only one race that has the power in this country to affect change on the other race. We don't have that power.
Right.
So when people say that, it's different. It's a difference between being prejudiced to me and being racist.
I mean, most business owners are white, and so it's when you get those stereotypes that, oh, black people are loud, or black people are this, black people are that. That hurts our community, because then those business owners are thinking, oh, well, this is a black person, so I'm not going to give you a job. So I have the power to deny you any finance because I feel like you're this way because of the color of your skin.
Absolutely. And her bringing that up, guys, I think that's a great time to cut to one of our first videos that kind of spells out the difference between living in the world black and living in the world white. And I want everyone to know that we are not saying that racism only goes towards black people, because there's racism and discrimination towards different races as well.
Yes.
And heck, there's black people that can't stand white people too, okay?
Right.
But right now we just want to talk about the fact that you look at somebody as being less superior than you and you treat them wrong. It doesn't matter what color they are.
Yeah.
It needs to stop. So we're going to cut to video number 1 right now, control room, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Welcome back, everyone. We're going. I was giving somebody else a cue that they could start off, but they were in daydream land here. So what did you think about our video, Derrick?
Well, this video, and to a lot of African Americans, Black, whatever you choose to call yourself, because I know people have preferences. This is everyday life for us, and these are the types of things that when you look at the video. These are things that are commonplace for us. And like I said, I have dialogue with people almost weekly. And what ends up happening is people believe that because they don't hear us screaming from the rooftops every day that there's a problem, that it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us, unfortunately, a lot of us have gotten so used to it that we've just accepted the fact that it won't change and we don't say anything. And so a lot of times people of other races will say, well, I haven't heard you talking about it, so racism, there must not be anything going on. And so this video actually taps into the umbrella of, and I, this, I want to say this before I go any further. This show isn't about one race bashing the other or anything like that, but we have to use white and black because the history in the United States is so long between the races, and the only way that we can come together and try to figure this out is to discuss it and talk about it. Because a lot of this stuff, just even in my dialogue with even just those two people that I talk to every week, they don't realize what we have to deal with every day. Yeah. And so that video falls under the umbrella of what I would term white privilege. And this is, once again, I talk about this all the time. A lot of times you'll bring up the topic of white privilege and you'll bring that up to a white person and they'll say, well, what are you talking about? I had to work all my life and I'm poor. And, what are you talking about privilege? I don't have money. And what a lot of people don't realize is that white privilege isn't about money. It's about access. It's about resources. It's about what we saw in the video about just putting your resume in, and just the fact that you're named a certain way may be the difference between you getting a job or not. And so what I'm going to do, since I'm Mr. Card Logic, I'm going to do a real live demonstration of what that looks like so you guys can visualize it, because that's what the Card Logic brand is about. So this is what white privilege looks like to people who are who may consciously or unconsciously know that they have the privilege. This is what it looks like. So these red cards are going to represent the race that has the privilege, right? So all of this is your privilege. That you don't, whether you feel like you have it or not, whether it's, the resume situation that we saw in the video, whether it's getting a loan for a house or a car, or all of those things that we have biases. This is all of this that you have access to, whether you utilize it or not. We're not even talking about money. So now the person, we'll just flip a card over and we'll say the person who has the privilege, they live right here in the middle of it. And so when you tell that person, do you realize that this other race is sitting out here on the outside that don't have access to that privilege? Don't you realize that they don't have that kind of same kind of privilege that you do? They're going to say, what are you talking about? Why? Because all they see is this every day. They don't even know that it's different for other people. And so when people say white privilege, it's almost kind of like people get defensive because they're like, what are you talking about? They automatically think financial. It's not about financial. It's the stuff that we deal with every single day that you may not hear because we got to go about our lives every day. And so all of this privilege, like I said, 99% of this has nothing to do with money. But when you're sitting in it and it's everyday life for you, you don't see it as a problem. And so what happens is that when the other race says, hey, there's a problem over here, you're like, stop whining. What are you talking about? Life is great. Everything's cool. Mm-hmm. I might be poor. I might be working hard. But this doesn't, you won't be affected by the same things that the ones on the outside will be affected by. So this is just a visual demonstration just to show you, like, this person will never know what it feels like to be out here. No matter how hard you work, you'll never be able to go somewhere and be judged just because this card is a different color. Yeah. You'll never know what that feels like. So that's a demonstration. I just wanted you guys to visualize that and to actually see that white privilege really has nothing to do with finances. There are, of course, the power structure in the country is financial, the upper 1% and all of that. But every day, we're not even thinking about money. We want to be fair. We want things to be fair. That's really what it is. So that's my little piece there.
Right.
Feel free to chime in.
And I feel like another big problem with that is that even if people were able to, as you were doing, like step outside their comfort zone and go over there, people don't want to do that.
Right.
And so it's like it gets to the point where people formulate their opinions about your lifestyle that they've never lived. That's like me saying I'm an expert about everything there is to know about a man. I would say a man is an expert. I can't say I know what it's like to be a man. So when I have friends let me not go there. When I have people who tell me they know what it's like to be black, or I can explain to them what it's like to be black, I can explain to him what it's like to be a woman all day, but that doesn't really know he's going to know what it truly feels like to be a woman.
Right.
And it's just like, why don't people understand that? How do you not get that?
Right. So
like, okay.
This her passion. This is the calls that I'm getting at night, Facebook guys, so she's gone off for her college experience.
Will a white person ever truly know what it's like to grow up in a society where you can literally get kicked out of school for the way your hair naturally grows out of your head? And I've been lucky to grow up in PG. I'm so happy I do.
Prince George's.
We gotta say the name. Put some respect on it. Prince George's County. Black excellence. I'm so happy that I grew up the way I grew up because it truly taught me to love myself for who I am. So it's just like when you have all those outside sources telling you, oh, your hair is not acceptable. Your hair is not to the European standard, therefore you have to damage it in order for it to look more like mine so that you can look professional. How a white person will never get that part of them or grow up with baby dolls that don't look like them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I grew up drawing pictures with blue eyes, and I live around nothing but minorities and nothing but people telling me black love. All of my pictures when I was little all had blue eyes, and I didn't notice that, but that's something very psychological. And I think even growing up, I had a perm, you know what I'm saying? I didn't really like my natural hair until I was 14, and then I realized, I was like, what am I doing? I was like, what? Natural is the way to go. But it's like a white person will never go through that, though. That's something you can tell them about, but they won't experience it.
Okay, it's some, and unfortunately some, when they say that they understand, they're full of it. They're full of it. Okay, Trinity has learned, she's trying to learn how to gauge. You know, some of them truly want to know.
Some of them do.
Some of them truly want to know. And some people have been enlightened and been like, oh, wow, I never knew this. And they make a conscious decision not to offend. And again, this is gonna happen with any kind of race. Do you make a conscious decision not to offend a Muslim? Do you make a conscious decision not to offend an Arab? Or do you make a conscious decision not to offend a Spanish person or something? Hispanic person. So I said it wrong. Okay, Hispanic person. But look, so let me tell you, thinking about this video, it made me reflect back on my aunt. Carcina. She's now deceased.
Okay.
She was living down in North Carolina. Her son passed away at, I believe that he was about 4 years old when he passed away. She had to worry about where was she going to be able to bury him, because at that time the KKK was very prevalent in the area, and the fact that they would dig his body up because of this. But coincidentally, she ended up being able to bury him in a white cemetery where he was never touched, simply because his name was Nikolai Shuttlewood. Okay, now if his name would have been something else, then it would be a whole bunch of problems. Because his name was Nikolai Shuttlewood, the person who owned the cemetery was like, because this person was okay with black people, it wasn't a racist or didn't have an ignorance about him, and was like, well, you know what, if we put that on his grave, you'll probably be safe to still be here. We'll put him here because in the other cemetery, in the black cemetery, they're not taking care of the grounds as nice. They have flooding going on and all this other kind of stuff. So my aunt's nephew, my aunt's son is buried in the white cemetery simply based on his name. And that's crazy.
Yeah. And again, that's not a concern of, that doesn't affect them. They're never wondering, oh, can I bury him here without someone messing with his grave? Oh, can my son go to school? Well, I mean, that's a bigger issue. That's another thing. But, well, as far as without being racially targeted, or can my son drive without being harassed? That's not a concern of the white community.
Yeah, and I'll go back to the I always talk about these conversations because it's very unique, the environment that I have, and we don't do it like in a public area. We'll go into to one of our offices because we have adjacent offices, and we'll just talk about stuff. And the funny thing is even as a black person that's been here all my life, a lot of the things that we do, sometimes we subconsciously don't even realize that we're doing it to make them comfortable. Like the hair, or how we have to dress in corporate America to make sure that they feel comfortable, or, if sometimes people will, if you're walking down the street and you see someone coming this way and you feel like they might be threatened, you might move over to make sure that they don't feel threatened. And it's like, if you have to live every day worrying about your mannerisms and how you dress and not being able to be yourself to conform to what society thinks is okay, it's almost like wearing a mask every day, right? And it's so ingrained in us that it becomes a part of who we are. And then this is where the information doesn't get shared because we feel like if we talk about it, we're going to offend somebody, or we might lose our job if we say this person was being, judgmental or racist against me because of my skin color. The funny thing is if you take a room full of African Americans and you ask them about their racial, how they've grown up and what they deal with, a lot of the stories are similar. And like the conversation that I had last week with one of my coworkers was about, one of the things was about the police, pulling up behind you and pulling you over. And I was telling him that we get nervous. A lot of us get really nervous when it happens. And he was like, well, that's not any different than me. I get nervous. I said, no, you get nervous because you think you're going to get a ticket. My worries are a little bit different than yours.
Yeah.
I'm worrying about making it home. And he was like, I never thought of it that way. I'm sorry. I didn't. I was like, yeah, you knew. You just, it's that, what they call it, unconscious bias. People don't realize that they have that in them, and they don't even realize that it's a thing. But yeah, it's the dialogue has to happen, and unconscious bias, you get a pass, kind of, but not really, because we're in 2018. So you now have access to information. You see this stuff happening all the time. And just one little other example, how we have like all of these cell phone videos of, they have these people calling the police on what is
That's
it?
that new thing on
It's not new.
So this is the thing.
That's not all
It's
of a
not
sudden. I mean, it's just so much coming
So-
out. Going
It's
to the
just
pool.
because people
Going
record
in the
it.
shot.
It's
Right.
always been
So that's
happening.
what I was getting at. The guy asked me, he was like, I see all of this stuff happening. You think that it's increasing? And it's another black guy that I work with. And we both said in unison at the same time. We was like, no, it's not new. You're just seeing it now, but it's always been this way.
We have had phones. Phones have been recording stuff. We've been talking Black Lives Matters for a couple of years now because of police brutality, and those recordings have been out there. These new recordings, of people, it's the climate, and I usually don't get into politics, and I'm still your girl Tasha, but it's the climate because of who we have in the White House that is more prevalent right now, that people doing it. I don't care if you want to call him a racist or not a racist. There's a lot of racist people that support him.
It's more done without. It's without apology now. I feel as though, but people are starting to learn to use their phones when they see these instances. So now when they see it, they're like, let me show the world. It's always been happening.
Alicia made a point. People change, and us all need to change the way that we talk when we're around people, or being told that just because someone utilizes proper English that you're talking white and all this other kind of things. Also, she brought up the fact about even when dealing with missing children, how the Amber Alerts get out and the ratio of the Amber Alerts versus looking for a white child versus a black child or any other race.
Yeah. I mean, that talking white thing really hit me, because I feel like that's another issue, not only with white people, but as well as in the black community, because black people say that stuff too. And it's just like,
we got black people that are racist against their own race. So please don't think this is just about that.
They do it to please the white race. So what my problem with that is, like, these people don't know that they're bashing their own skin. And they correlate a lot of negative things with being black, and anything positive is correlated with being white. But why? Not all black people are the same.
Remember to share and invite, guys. Share and invite. And please call in 301-429-9247. Call in, chime in. Whether you agree with our position or not, please call in and chime in.
Please.
This is a discussion
Open
and
discussion.
a dialogue that needs to be had. Go ahead.
I was saying not all black people are the same, and I feel like the way that the media portrays black people is why you have the conception that black people are ratchet, or black people are this, or black people are that. And it hurts us in a negative aspect. I feel like it's not only that, though. Media in general shapes our minds, and it brings about those, what did you say, biases?
Unconscious bias.
It brings about those unconscious biases. And so when you don't know that you have those unconscious biases, that's when it's dangerous. That's when you have this fear that's not supposed to be there of a black man. And that's why black men get killed. Yeah. Because the media shapes us to be criminals, or shapes us to be loud or ghetto.
Yeah.
And I'm far from it.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, for my child who has been an honor roll student, my child who has stayed out of trouble, who has played basketball, who plays the violin, who rides horses, who writes poetry, who writes song, who will go out her way to help any and everyone to go and be presented with persons. One of the issues
equestrian drill team.
Look,
we gonna keep going.
One of the issues that's there, and look, and we're looking at probably a straight A student or a straight A and 1B for
my
our first semester in college. Okay. For her to go and be presented with a situation where she's expressed her concerns because the young lady that was in Florida being the police was punching her in the side, it made her talk about the whole thing with the Black Lives Matters movement. And we know that people talk about all life matters and all this other kind of stuff.
Let me tell you the best analogy ever. Now, for people who firmly believe in saying all lives matter, if it's almost as if it's argumentative to shut out Black Lives Matter. And I was told by a wise man, not even told, I heard a wise man once say, you wouldn't go to a breast cancer seminar and say, hey, what about lung cancer? What about all the other cancers? You wouldn't go to a preschool graduation and be like, kindergarten matters too. No, who does that?
Right.
That's
so
true.
when I talk about if I'm a breast cancer patient, I'm going to talk about the struggles of having breast cancer, an instance particular to me. I'm not saying lung cancer doesn't matter, but I'm saying my experience with breast cancer has affected me in this way. So why is there a problem when I say my experience being black in America has affected me this way? Why is there what about me? I have problems and I'm white. What about me? I'm an Asian person with problems. I'm not saying your problems are irrelevant. I'm saying my problems are relevant.
And it's funny that people seem to attack that, because I had called Trinity. I said, guess what I just saw on TV? Last week they were talking about the number of women that are dying while they're pregnant. And it's funny because the highest number actually happens in the District of Columbia. Out of the whole country, there's so many women that are going into labor and they're dying on the table from labor. So their slogan was Mom's Life Matters, but nobody's fussing about the fact that they saying Mom's life matters because it's important. Hanging with your girl Tasha. Who do we have and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Layla Bodie, and I'm actually calling from Clinton, Maryland. I wanted to chime in on the subject at hand.
Hello, Layla. Thank you for calling in. What do you have for us?
Well, my thoughts are this. I can't stand reality TV. For one, how it portrays black people just in general. And because of this portrayal of us, it makes us look like something that we're not. And when we have the other groups, be it white, Chinese, Mexican, or anything like that, they think that that's what an actual black person's life is like. So I feel that with reality TVs and the ignorance of reality TVs, the TV shows in general, that has a lot to do with the ignorance of our young people and the people that are coming the next generation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So the ignorance comes from what we watch on TV. The ignorance comes from the memes that we see on social media. It comes from parents not being that parent, per se, to give that difference between what's real and what's not when they call reality TV what's real.
Yeah.
So I feel like as far as the ignorance goes, what we're watching or what we're allowing our children to watch and grow up and look at as reality TV, not only are we looking at it as African Americans, we have other cultures looking at it and saying, oh, that's how they are. Mm-hmm. We're all being stereotyped from the what's so-called reality TV shows. So I feel that if we did more protesting against these so-called reality TVs, that we could kind of level out and do maybe more real reality TV shows that depicts an everyday person's life to kind of show that all of our African Americans, black people, however you want to say it, are not ignorant.
That's right. Can we have some positive reality TV shows?
Some mature grown woman.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Ms. Bodie, for calling in. We appreciate you.
Yes.
And what happens?
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. What happens psychologically to a black person living here? Because it's a lot of like racism across the world, but we're talking like for me, a lot of it's more prevalent here just because of the history that we have here. And a lot of other countries have histories too. There's a lot of racism like in Australia and all these other different countries. But the reality TV, the messaging in our music, in the TV shows and all of this stuff, what happens over time, the unfortunate consequence of receiving so much of this information as a black person is, a lot of us start to believe it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then it affects how we treat each other. And that's why I always look at when you see these race discussions online or on TV, they'll always say, but look at Chicago. Look at all those people in Chicago. It's black on black crime and all of that, right? What people don't realize, and this is what I have to tell my coworkers a lot, is when you force a demographic of people into an area, and this falls under that term redlining, where black people couldn't buy houses in certain areas, and you create ghettos and you create a poverty situation where the schools are bad and you don't have access to anything. When you have poverty and when you have people that just don't have anything, it doesn't matter what race you are, there's going to be crime there. Poverty and crime go hand in hand. You're concentrating a bunch of people here and you're saying, okay, we're not going to give you anything. You guys fend for yourselves and fight each other and do whatever. And then you can stand back and say, yes, look, they're the problem. Mm-hmm. The problem is that you created the environment.
Yeah.
And so when you couple that with the messaging and black people not having self-love, if I don't love myself, if I hate myself, the first person that I'm going to hate is someone that looks like me.
And not only that, people who say stuff like that only focus on the negative.
Of course.
Like they directly, Chicago could do all the hold all the positive events in the world, and none of them would be broadcasted.
You'll never see it.
That's right. That's right. Now, look, guys, another question that we're going to ask about after I go to our next video is basically about some people act like some people are born that way. Are people born racist or are they taught racism? So, control room, let's cut to our second video, please.
You don't know. So who ate them all?
Someone come
someone come around and ate the cakes?
Yeah.
So someone broke into a home and ate Mr. Kipling's Angel Slices. Didn't take the TV, didn't take, some jewellery. They took these cakes.
And it was a black man.
Oh my
That's Latasha. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so obviously, not only is there a problem with a girl who looks like she couldn't be more than 3 years old, already knowing to pin it on a race, but if you look at what the mother's reaction was, she laughed. And then when she laughed, that enforced to the baby girl that was okay because the baby girl smiled. So it's like, that's the initial, she was obviously taught that from somebody. And the mother had the audacity to share it with someone else for it to even be posted on a social web. There's already that problem there, and it gets taught apparently at a young age. It's possible for 3-year-olds or however old she was, to have racist ideals or to already have prejudice, and I just think that's sad.
It is. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's taught, and even just hearing like Trinity's stories, and like we always think that the generations that follow things will get better, and then then you have someone that's Trinity's age, and she's like, I'm dealing with it too, and it's
They
like,
pass
okay,
it down. It's passed down.
Like even when we looked at what happened in Charlottesville, those guys weren't young. Those men and women were. I mean, they weren't old. They were young.
Yeah,
they were young. So it's going to keep going until I don't know what the solution.
And then you have. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, baby.
I was like, and then you have those who identify it, which is good. So I feel like that brings about progression. Those who identify that they're being taught wrong. I've had those who have identified, oh, well, my family has problems, so I'm trying to better myself and go a different route, and I'm trying to learn. If I had a nickel, I always say this, if I had a nickel for every time someone told me their family was racist, my student loans would be paid off. Seriously.
Well, we need to get us some nickels.
Okay.
Too, okay. But this is that's crazy. I was getting ready to say something and I forgot where I was gonna go with.
Well, what did you say?
It was when you were talking. I was getting ready to say, but I'll let you go ahead and go there. I don't know. Talk.
When he was talking.
I can talk.
No, it's something you said because you started talking.
So this is what happens with we gonna
That's
segue.
bad. I didn't take my brain this morning.
So with that being said, like
I know what it was.
Back to you.
What are we doing? What are people? Okay, those, no matter what color you are, what do you do? Why do we find it so uncomfortable to stand up for things that we see as racial injustices when it goes on? Why don't we say something? I had so many other videos that I wanted to download. I just didn't get time, but there is a movement called Racism Stops With Me, okay? And on this video, they're on YouTube. They have all these different videos, and so it shows a situation where a white man is standing at the elevator, and a white lady is coming into the building, and he stops and he holds the elevator for her. And the white lady gets on the elevator. Then he sees a black woman coming up, and he jumps on the elevator quick, and he starts pushing the door close button. But the white lady inside the elevator, notice that he does that. She puts her hand in the elevator, and she steps out the elevator to stay with the black woman to let him ride up by himself. Right. How many of you who are front row and center, and you see something that happened that's wrong, no matter what race it involves, how many of you are willing to take a stand to say something? Don't put yourself in harm, but it's just a little gesture like that to get off an elevator, to let somebody know that you're standing with them. How many of you have the guts to actually do that?
I already see a discrepancy with that, because you have those who wouldn't see that as a racial problem. Maybe he knows the girl. Maybe he just didn't like her. People make excuses to make it not about race. People love to take away the argument that it's a racist issue. Even with police injustices. They're like, well, maybe it's not about race. Maybe it's about he just looks suspicious or something. They just change it up.
Or what they'll do, you can have the video, you can show what's going on at that moment, but you'll go back and you'll dig up everything about that person's past history to justify why whatever took place took place.
Put the victim on trial. The victim goes on trial. We're gonna criminalize the victim and dehumanize him so that it looks like it's okay. Well, he deserved it because he was smoking marijuana. He deserved it because of everything he did in the past. I didn't know that the police officer became the judge and the jury. I didn't know that. I didn't know they determined their consequences and their sentencing, whatever the word is. Sentencing.
Sentencing.
Yes.
So where will you get ready to go?
No, I was just saying, like, there's a video. I forget the lady's name, but a lot of people probably have seen it where she has like an audience and she's like, "How many of you would trade places basically with how black people are treated in America? Raise your hand." And none of them raised their hand and then she was like, "So there's a problem,
I saw
and
that.
you're just choosing to stand by and just let it happen. You're cool with
Rock, he said that with all the money that he makes, there's nobody that would trade places with him with all the money that he makes as a black man.
Exactly. So the fact that there are people walking around, they're watching this stuff happen, they're watching the biases with the resumes and the car loans and all of this stuff, and because it's so commonplace, they get complacent in it and they just let it happen. And they know it's wrong. And I don't even think they're afraid to say anything a lot of times. I think they just think that this is just how it is and they just go along with it. But the problem becomes, if I as a black person see that you are complacent with it, then to me you're just as guilty.
Right.
Okay,
right?
What about us being complacent with our own calling each other the N-word?
Oh, hey.
I got a problem with it.
I do not think...
The phone number.
I'm
sorry, somebody asked for the
phone number is 301-429-9247. Again, the number is 301-429-9247. We welcome all calls and all comments from all points of view.
Yep.
I do not condone saying the N-word. I don't think it's acceptable for anyone to say it. But at the same time, I understand why it's more acceptable for black people to say it than white people. It's just like with the Democratic Party. Okay, so our mascot is a donkey because there's a story that a lot of times, at some point in time in the beginning, back in history, a lot of Republicans would call Democrats jackbutts. So they took that and they were like, okay, you want to call me that? Sure. But it's still not okay. It's still disrespectful for anyone to say that to somebody else. Or like females oftentimes call each other the B word. And I personally don't go for that. Don't call me that. But I'm not going to get in your business if another female's calling another girl a B word because they're friends or whatever. But if a dude were to say it, it's a different feeling because it's like, who are you? You're not a part of this marginalized group to be able to say something like that.
But see, I found myself, I've sat at sporting events and heard our youth talk to each other using the B word as well as the N word. Mm-hmm. And I'm that mom that'll be like, young man, young woman, where's your level of respect for yourself? Okay, so I question it because I don't think it's right. I don't want it. I don't care for the music that utilizes and stuff. I mean, just like clean comedy. Comedy could be just as funny without cussing and all that stuff in it. Music could be just as good. You could bop and get your groove on and do the stanky leg without having the N-word up in the stanky leg.
Wait, did you say stanky leg?
Stanky leg.
Okay.
Stanky leg.
So,
okay.
I mean, but if somebody were to call somebody a name and they took it back, how mad could you be at them for calling themselves that?
Right. Now, what I think is, guys, I got a lot of people. Again, the number is 301-429-9247. 301-429-9247. I actually receive inbox messages, and then in some of the public groups that I post about why is it that some people felt that hanging with your girl Tasha, it's such a light show. She usually have fun topics, all this other stuff. Do you really think that you really want to talk about racism on your show? Absolutely. I want to talk about any
Oh,
kind
we're
of...
talking about this.
I want to talk about...
Because it affects me. What do you mean? Why am I talking about something? It's important to me because it affects my lifestyle.
It's affecting my baby girl, and I had to let her take and blow this stuff off about what she's calling me, what she has seen with some people. Okay, again, she feels that she can change the world, and she deals with it in a more respectable and mature way that she's teaching her mommy different, because personally mommy in some cases like just hit him in the throat, but I digress.
God gave me the gift of patience.
Okay, one moment. Hanging with your girl Tasha. Who do we have and where are you calling from?
Hey Tasha, it's Matt Klingman from Charles County, Maryland. How are you?
How are you, Matt?
Good. Hey everybody.
Hey.
I wanted to, if I may, just go back to a point, because you were talking about how African Americans are portrayed in Hollywood, and you just got done talking about how music also offers negative connotivity at times.
Yes.
I wanted to say that let's not forget that the government did that also. Back in the Reagan era, we had the welfare moms, the war on drugs, all these other things that are systemic to keep us apart. And for every breakout role that maybe one African American has, there's single-dimensional parts that are mainly given to them, and it promotes that stigma for, this is how certain people are going to be viewed.
Right.
Exactly. They look. For those of y'all who may not know, Matt is my co-vice president. The two of us are both vice presidents for CWA Local 2108.
Tell them all your business.
They know who they already know who I am, but Matt is my co-vice president, and look at him calling here and educating and dropping knowledge out there. We feeling you, Matt. You need to be sitting up here on the panel with us.
I don't got a face for TV. I'm more of a face for newspaper, maybe. Newspaper.
I thank you so much for calling and sharing, Matt.
Thanks. You all have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, even systemically over a long period of time that has separated us by force, by law, and then we conform to these things and we fight each other on things that came to us externally. Like he was saying, the war on drugs, we didn't necessarily have control over that, but we had to reap the repercussions of what it did to black people, what it did to, why people were getting arrested for these crimes. The other races would look and say, look at them. Look, they're criminals.
But
it just becomes a way of, that unconscious bias. Like when I, once again, when I talk to my coworkers, it's kind of like the assumption, prejudice.
Yeah.
The assumption that someone is a certain way just because of what you've seen, and you've never had a dialogue or even tried to meet the person or say hello.
Right.
And we work I get on real short, the elevator at work. When I get on the elevator, and I always tell people I'm the NASA nerd. I got the glasses on, and the white woman would be in the corner of the elevator like this. Or if we're walking, this is the elevator. If I'm walking this way and she's trying to run to get to the elevator, if she see me get ready to get on it, she will slow down and stop and maybe try to look at her phone and make sure that I get on, and so she don't have to get on. And I'm like, so this little stuff like that, you got to think about it. If that one little example happens every week, think about what it does to a person's psyche when you have to see that in almost every facet of your life as you're growing up, and what you become because of that psychologically. It's not cute.
And I've heard these all the time, and me just hearing you say that, I heard other perspectives. So as far as taking the race out of it, then in turn someone will say, well, maybe they didn't want to get on the elevator with you because you're a man, or maybe they didn't want to get on the elevator. Maybe she's in the corner because you're a stranger. But it's like you don't see her behavior. You don't know that for sure because you don't see her behavior of that with another white man or somebody.
Hanging with your girl Tasha, who's calling, and where are you calling from?
I would like to stay anonymous, but I do have a story I would like to tell.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so I own a small business, right? And with my small business, I choose to keep my ethnicity sorry. I'm watching the show at the same time. Tasha, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to watch and listen at the same time, but my phone wouldn't allow me. So I own a small business, and I had an issue where a client of mine wanted me to come and perform our services that we offer. And during the beginning of the services, when we pulled up to the person's house, she approached me and my coworker, and she looked at both of us and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're so
black."
She stopped. Yes, she stopped, and then she said, "You're so gorgeous." I choose as a small business owner to keep my ethnicity under wraps. So by looking at my Facebook page or by looking at my Instagram or by me emailing people, you don't know whether I'm white, black, Asian, Puerto Rican, whatever. You don't know what I am. And I feel that by not disclosing my race, I get more business. And when the lady made the comment, when she came outside to the vehicle to help us bring our stuff inside for our services, it made me very uncomfortable. But as a business owner, I had to stay professional, and I had to keep it moving like I didn't hear what she said. But a part of me wanted to say something, but as a business owner, I was kind of scared to say something because I didn't want to leave a bad taste in her mouth because she expected me to be something other than what I am. And I just would like to know how you, Tasha, would have handled the situation if you would have pulled up to one of your clients and they looked at you and they said, "Oh, you're," and then paused, but you knew it was veered towards your race. Would you have continued to provide them your services, or would you redirected them?
Because
what would you have done?
Because it's a business, I would have continued to provide their services, but I also would have kissed her on the cheek and hugged her too. I'd be like, "Baby, oh, thank you for saying I'm gorgeous. I love you, girl." Yes, I would have went ahead because I'm going to go ahead and show her that I'm the professional. And whatever thoughts that she may have had about me, she would have had to change them. Or at least she would have known something different.
Now, during my services, I killed it with kindness, and that's what I did. But how do you feel about, or anybody on the panel, about me keeping my ethnicity, like, under wraps? I don't let people know, my race or anything like that, because I feel like if I do, then my business would decline as far as the customers that I serve of different ethnicities, if they knew what my race was. So is that silly, or is that something that's common with most small businesses or business in general, to keep your race under wraps so that way the prejudice that is alive and well won't keep festering?
We're gonna let Mr. Card Logic answer that question for you.
So believe it or not, what you're talking about is probably more normal than what you would like to think. As far as keeping your race out of it, because we know about the prejudices or whatever, but it's not a bad thing to do that as a business owner, because you're trying to, as a business, you want to turn a profit, you want to, have clients and all of that. And I used to run a t-shirt business, and someone told me, who was making a lot of money in t-shirts, they were like, if you really want to make real money, don't let people know it's you. Mm-hmm. Just call it whatever the name of the company, and don't attach yourself to it. That
is sad.
It is. It's very sad.
But that's the thing. And another thing that is sad. Thank you so much for calling in, Miss Anonymous.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. And another thing about that is that what's so sad about it is that even us, we'll be like, that's why I don't go to black-owned businesses. Mm-hmm. Because we have that own stereotype that, I can't support my own people because they can't get the job right. Let me read some of these comments that are in here.
Michael Ford
Michelle Ford has, I am an IT manager and people will walk by me to go to the white technician, only for the technician in most cases to have to come to me for assistance. They will speak to the white staff, not even acknowledging me, then look shocked when they find out that I'm the manager. Andre Johnson says, I don't like the use of the N-word or the B-word. Don't call me the N-word or B-word. Call me Miss Johnson.
Okay.
Call me D.
Okay.
Call me Andre. All right now, guys. I know it's a lot of, Larnice said that her son is currently dealing with something of that nature in her school right now. Time is a little bit running out, Larnice. I did encourage you to feel free to call in if you are able to call in and share what's going on with your son, guys. Also, we have white offenders are more oftentimes let go than black and Hispanic offenders. And then I wonder what is the ratio of how many times do you hear of a white man that has been locked up for years of his life and then later on they find out that they're innocent? How often? I don't know if I've ever heard a story of that.
You just made me see something as well. Remember something? Someone asked me about the narrative that white men are killed, unarmed white men are killed more by the police than black men. Now, this is true, but there's a twisting of statistics. African Americans are 12% of the American population. So we are targeted and killed at a faster rate. For our population to be so small, the amount of black men that are killed is not acceptable. So we are killed at a faster rate, but it's more people considering that white people are most of the population.
Yeah, that's true, and that's one of those talking points where they do that creative, those statistics and try to make it look a certain way. But at the end of the day, once again, people who do that, they still do not tackle the problem at hand. It's that whole Black Lives Matter thing. It's like, okay, what are you crying about? More white people get killed, and it's like, no, but this is still a problem. This is still a problem. You need to look at this. And it's like brushed off.
And even if it's a white people problem too, then why are you arguing with me? You need to be fighting standing right next to me.
Right.
Exactly. Now, guys, I received this, and it's not the Matt that called in. Another Matt sent this to me earlier. Explaining, I am a 39-year-old white man from Alabama. Grew up dirt poor in the sticks. My family comes from a long line of racists, and I won't lie. At times, I catch myself having racist thoughts. Is racism real? Yes, it is. Does it affect the black community more than the white or brown community? Absolutely. Some of it is systemic abuse by those elected on both sides of the political spectrum. Some of it is self-inflicted. My own come to Jesus moment on my own bigotry came when my 3-year-old daughter started preschool last year. To be blunt, I hate Arabs. Can't stand them. Can barely look at them without wanting to lose my... I'm not saying that word on them. And I know it's my heart that needs to be worked on, not them. It is my anger at things that they didn't do. So, of course, my beloved daughter, the best of me and the light of my eyes, becomes best friends with a Muslim Syrian refugee girl. I had to spend a lot of time talking to my big guy upstairs. I have slowly learned to put aside that anger and start looking at the person, not the group. I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm getting there. Y'all pray for me, and I'll return the favor. Yours in love, Matt. Okay?
Yeah, that's real. That's real, and that anger and that fear, that especially with the, what do they call it? Is Islamophobia? That's ridiculous. Okay, and half of the people that they think are Muslim, whatever they call them, extremists or whatever, they're not even the same religion, but they may have similar dress, and they just put everybody in the same bunch. Like, we know what that feels like too, but it's just it's insane. And I'm really a person where I know that there's white, black, whatever race you are, but I have to think like we all live here together. As long as we can talk and have dialogue and stop just being like this all the time. Like that whole thing about white people are not going to be the majority in a certain year or whatever. I'm afraid to see what that looks like, because they're going to be scared and they're going to start lashing out and doing kind of crazy stuff. They already doing it now.
Yeah.
So, guys, we have one more video that I want to show because the minutes are wrapping down right now. Some people might want to know, how can you go about want to stand against racism, and you may not have an idea of how to do it, or you want some comfortable ways to do it. This video, which is sponsored, I forgot about the organization, shares some suggestions on how you can stand against racism. So, control room, can we cut to our last video, please? Okay, guys, so there we are. There you have it. There are some suggestions for us about how we can stand against racism. We're getting ready to go into 2019. I don't think that anything's going to change that much, but as I said earlier, the change starts with each individual.
Yes.
So what are you going to do to stop racism? How does that start with you? If every person takes care of themselves, then everything will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
As Natasha Davenport put in the chat, she said, "What color are we without our skin?" What color are we without our skin? Okay, so
I'm purple.
this has been we probably need to have definitely 1 hour is not enough to discuss this topic, you know, but I'm glad
We've
that
been discussing it forever, but continue.
okay, see, look what y'all doing to my baby, but that's okay. But we had discussion. It will not be the last show that you have on here. I had one person that wanted to know why I want to always bring up racism. I'm like, I've never brought up racism at all, but this same individual feels that a certain race is an infestation, and I'm sure she may be watching, but that's okay. But guys, come back with us. What you want to say? You want to say anything? Last words to them? Any suggestions?
No, I just, the dialogue needs to continue, not just with us, but with you, your family, your friends, and everybody you come in contact with. And this show, once again, like I said at the top of the show, this show was not meant to bash anyone. This is meant for us to have a dialogue and really be a teaching moment for a lot of people. It's not just about white people learning, it's about black people learning. Sometimes we have to learn about ourselves in order to project out. I always talk about projecting out positive energy and just letting people feel that. And sometimes that's the difference between someone wanting to dialogue with you or not.
I want to say not just with issues of racism, but especially with issues of racism, but any issue in general. Before you formulate opinions, you need to seek understanding first. Before you can say, oh, this shouldn't be this way, you need to understand why it is that way before you make your opinion.
All right, guys, there you have it for my Mini Me Trinity. And I want to tell you guys, I want each and every one of y'all back next week because next Monday, I have 2 little entrepreneurs here. Yep. One of them, I don't know the actual age. I don't think she's like, Monty might be 4, but she's written her own book. And then we have James, who also has started a non-bullying organization, okay? These kids are our future. And back in the studio with me with the little baby entrepreneurs next week will be my Mini Me Trinity.
Where's she at?
So there you go for another Hanging with Your Girl Tasha. And bam, I'm always being authentically me. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.